Hey friends, welcome to the Health Simple Show. I'm your host, Kyle Reedhead, and I interview health and wellness experts from around the world to help you live healthy, happy, and stress-free. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and if you have any questions about anything we talk about through this episode, just comment below and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Enjoy the show. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Health Simple Radio. This is episode number 56, and today I am joined with another guest here in Bali with me. I don't know how this keeps happening, but there's just so many incredible people here in Bali. His name is Christopher Chiu, and he's a transformational coach, and he leads Ayahuasca retreats. So if you haven't heard of that, we're going to dive deep into it. But Chris, first of all, thank you for joining us here on the podcast.
Thanks a lot, Kyle. I'm really excited to have this. Thank you.
I'm excited to discuss this. Ayahuasca is something I've never done, but I've heard a lot about it because I was in Peru actually traveling last year. So it's very popular there. Why don't you just start by telling us first, what is a transformational coach? So what exactly do you do? And what kind of led you down that path of becoming a transformational coach?
Sure. So I specifically just work with men. I've been doing this the last 3 years, and it's having, I guess you would say, a more holistic approach to life and your career and relationships. Some of the guys, that I've helped, they were like me 6 years ago. I was struggling with depression, anxiety, loneliness, self-esteem, confidence issues. Plus, I was pretty lost in life. I was working on Wall Street for 8 years, and that didn't feel in alignment, and it burned me out. So I really help guys kind of get in tune. So like the tagline for our retreats is helping men find freedom, purpose, and brotherhood. And that's a big part. That's kind of like the overarching things that I help men with.
So you went through a stage of burnout, is something that I guess we call it. And this is, I think, is becoming so popular with those working in the corporate lifestyle. Why is it that I guess, why is it that you fell into that? And why do you think so many of us are having these sort of issues?
I came from immigrant family. My dad's from Hong Kong. My mom, she was born in the U.S., but she's Chinese. And, in America, it's pretty much the narrative is go to college, get a good job, just make money. And especially for immigrant families, that's like, you want to make your parents proud. At least that's what I was going for. And so at age 25, I got a job with Morgan Stanley down in New York City, and I'm working right in the thick of it on the trading floor. And, that's pretty much what I did for 8 years. And during the half of the time, I started going to graduate school for my MBA. And I remember waking up one day, and I'm like, I'm at my partner's, my girlfriend's house at the time, and I'm like, I can't breathe. And so she's like, it's probably nothing. So I go and take my entrance exam for graduate school, and then I still can't breathe, right? So I go to the hospital, and I let the doctor know, and I'm 28, 29 at this point, and he's like, yeah, let's run some tests on you. You seem like a pretty healthy guy. You work out, you're muscular. So yeah, they're doing like basic things. Like, we don't find anything. He's like, let's just get an X-ray on your chest just to be sure. And so we go to the X-ray room, and then he comes back and he brings out the X-rays. So you have two lungs, and he goes, your left lung is nice and elongated, it's inflated. And he goes, your right lung, it's collapsed. It's the size of a golf ball, and that's why you can't breathe. And I'm just like, oh my God, did he just say what I think he said? And so they pretty much had to rush me to the emergency room to do surgery. I mean, they had to pretty much stick a tube inside of my chest to reinflate it. And I was in the hospital for a week, and, my parents came rushing down to come support me. And I was out of work for a month, and I was on painkillers, and it was not a fun time. And so what happened was, and during this time, I'm in my 20s, so I'm doing a lot of partying. I'm not this life that we live here in Bali, where you're meditating, you're eating healthy, it's more holistic approach. That was not me. I was partying 24/7. I was doing cocaine. I was just working hard, not taking care of my body or my mind. And so, yeah, I just kind of went back to that lifestyle after the surgery. I didn't change anything. And so what happened is 9 months later, it happened again. And this time I knew my lung collapsed. I'm like, all right, I have to go straight to the room. It hurt like hell this time. And so this time they gave me really heavy duty surgery, a surgery that they perform on airline pilots and divers because they're more susceptible to collapse lung. So I'm out of work for 2 months this time. I can't work out and I'm on painkillers. And that was kind of the wake up call that led me to kind of start healing myself and figuring out a way of having more holistic lifestyle. And so, yeah, that was a big part of my corporate burnout. And it was definitely the wake up call to force me to really listen to my body, to my intuition. Cause I was doing something that it paid a lot of money. I'll say that, but it wasn't fulfilling inside. Yeah. It was pretty much soul sucking. And so that was my version of corporate burnout that kind of led me to coaching in Thailand.
You know, it's unfortunate that oftentimes it takes something like that, an experience like that, that's so serious, to make us change, right? You know, we have all the symptoms or just the things that are leading up to it that should trigger us to go, you know what, I got to make change, but we just kind of put it off until finally your lung collapses twice. And that's the thing that tells you, you know, it's time to make a change. So, I mean, good for you for making that change. What did your parents think when you decided to leave the corporate world and a good paying job to go coach in Thailand?
They were not very impressed. And that's the thing. I didn't know what coaching was at that time. So what led me to Thailand was I just started training Muay Thai, kickboxing.
Okay.
And, I just tried it for like a New Year's resolution. I was like, oh my God, I'm addicted. I've always been into weightlifting and being healthy, but training a martial art, specifically Muay Thai, where you're kicking and you're punching, it just lit something up inside me. I was passionate about something for the first time in like years. And so I told my boss, I'm like, listen, this is when I'm still working on Wall Street. I said, hey, I have all this time saved up and I'm finishing graduate school. I haven't had a vacation in like 8 years. Can I go to Thailand and just train for a month at different gyms? And he was like, yeah, that's fine. I'm like, okay. So I flew to Thailand for just 1 month. This was 2012. And I went all over. Have you been to Thailand before?
I haven't yet. No, it's going to be a stop soon though.
Okay. So there's just like, there's the beach islands, then there's the mountains, and then there's Bangkok. So I pretty much did a tour of all of Thailand and I just trained at all the different Muay Thai gyms. And I was just like, man, this is so much different from being in New York. I'm doing something that I'm passionate about, not for money. And it also brought me to meditation. I just tried meditation for the first time. I met a teacher there, and it just flipped something inside of me. I was like, wow, I need to come back and explore meditation. I could just tell that it was good for me. So I went back to New York and I read the book, The 4-Hour Work Week.
Nice. Yeah.
By Tim Ferriss. And that book pretty much described the location-dependent entrepreneur / digital nomad lifestyle. And I'm like, this is what I need to do. I can't stay in New York. I can't do this. It's not for me. So I made that decision 7 months later to quit my job, sell everything in my apartment, and move to Thailand. And so that's the thing. When my parents were like, what are you, why? What are you doing? You do have this good job. You just finished your MBA. I was like, listen, like, I am not happy. This works for somebody else, maybe this lifestyle, but it's not making me happy. So my mom's immediate question is like, when are you going to come back? And I'm like, I don't know. My dad's like, what do you do for work? I don't know. And I was just trying to be upfront and honest with them. I wasn't trying to like give them a heart attack. So I just told them, like, listen, my first 3 goals for moving to Thailand was to have my first professional Muay Thai fight, to do a meditation retreat, Vipassana retreat, which is 10 days at the temple. And then the third goal was to figure out some kind of business model that I could make income and continue travel. So yeah, they obviously weren't very happy about it, but it was the first time in life where I was like, you know what, I need to put myself first. I need to listen to what my heart is telling me, what my soul is calling me to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. And it's funny, I have a very similar story. 4-Hour Work Week was what made me realize that I could do this digital nomad lifestyle, and is what pretty much allowed me to come out to Bali and do this. So it's funny, I've talked to a few people out here, and a lot of people say the same thing with that book. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
So what was kind of, so you've been out traveling now for how many years?
6 years.
6 years. Wow. And what was that kind of, when was the turning point where you realized, you know what, I can actually do this. I think I can stay out here. This is going to work for me. I like this, and this is it. This is what I'm going to do.
Yeah, that's so like I was fortunate enough to have a bunch of money saved up from New York. So my first year and a half, I was like, you know what, for at least for the first year, let me just focus on healing myself, going inwards, and just nothing related to business. So that first year I did a lot of, we'll talk about this later, but that's when I got into ayahuasca. That's when I did the Vipassana retreat. So after about a year and a half, I was like, I came back from Peru from a retreat and I felt renewed. I'm like, all right, you know what? I've done a lot of healing. Let's now try and focus on creating some kind of business. And so what I did was I bought a course called Dropship Lifestyle Method. And basically it was an e-commerce course that taught you how to build a dropshipping store. And I then moved to Chiang Mai, Thailand, which is like one of the big digital nomad hotspots over the world, because the creator of that course was actually throwing a business conference, a 5-day business conference. So 2 months after doing that course, I made my first sale. And so this is probably like 2 years of living in Thailand. That's when I was like, all right, this is for real. I don't need to go back to the US. I can continue on my journey of traveling and working online.
Amazing. So yeah, I want to talk a lot about your healing, because I think there's a lot of people that are going through or went through the same thing as you. And so I'd really like for this episode to be a good eye opener for people to let them know that yes, they can change, they can fix it, and maybe give some practical steps on how. So what were some of the things that you did that helped you overcome that burnout feeling, or that just that lost feeling that you were in?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say the first thing that really helped was meditation. Like I said, I didn't have any kind of mindfulness practice or experience. In New York, I was just too busy TV, going to read books, any of that. So I would say meditation was the first part of the solid foundation. I was going to a teacher 3 or 4 times a week. And then, like I said, I built up to eventually go to a 10-day Vipassana retreat, which is living in a temple with the monks, waking up at 4 a.m., meditating all day, only eating twice a day, and then going to bed at like 9. So you're meditating pretty much all day for 10 days straight. And that experience was very powerful. It really solidified my meditation practice.
Complete opposite of what you were doing in New York City, eh?
Yeah, very complete opposite. Very complete opposite. So I would say meditation is a huge thing. So practical steps, I would say something I always have my clients do is on our smartphones, there's apps. So I use Insight Timer, which is free, but for beginners, I would say Headspace or Calm. Those are 2 because they kind of give you guided meditations. And I feel like a lot of newbies are like, oh, I don't know how to start, or I don't know how to do it if I'm doing it right. So those applications, they kind of walk you through. They're free tutorials. I think that's a good starting point if you want to get to meditation. I also started obviously reading books, something which I had not really done. And I would say one of the first books that really helped me was The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. That was recommended by my meditation teacher. So, and also at that meditation retreat, I was able to release a lot of heavy emotions that I was carrying from childhood. I had, if you look at me, I'm Asian, so I'm not that I had to deal with growing up being different and bullied all the time. So that really weighed heavily on my childhood. And then also my relationship with my dad. It was a very strained relationship, very tense relationship growing up. And I harbored a lot of, I guess you would say, anger and resentment and hostility towards him. So during that retreat, I was able to really release a lot of these heavy energies. And the thing is, like, I was never in therapy. I was never in coaching. I probably should have as a young guy, but I didn't know. So going to that retreat was able to like really release these heavy energies that I had. So that was a really big part of the healing journey. Obviously, ayahuasca was a big thing for me.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that, but I just want to know, do you find that a lot of people that either you work with or just that you've spoken to, a lot of the issues that they're having now later into their adulthood, does it stem from what's happened when they were younger? Are a lot of people, carrying this negative energy or the things that happened to them at a younger age into their adulthood now?
Yeah, I mean, at least the majority of clients that I work with, yeah, they're seeking some kind of emotional healing,
Mm.
and yeah, I think the majority of people have issues from childhood, but a lot of people just don't want to look at that,
Yeah.
look inside. Um, is the shadow work, the inner child work, but yeah, it's a lot of things that trigger us come from childhood. A lot of like our behaviors or thought patterns can come from childhood. And if we don't address them, then they can just spiral out of control.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's why like having a mindfulness practice is helpful, because you can kind of start having self-awareness and start to kind of question, why am I doing these things, or why am I having these thoughts, or why am I having these behaviors? Why am I getting triggered? Meditation can kind of help you start doing that inquiry on
Mhm.
yourself.
Yeah, I completely agree. Because for me, I know before I started my meditation practice, I was never aware of anything. I mean, I'd have thoughts, I'd think different things, and I had no idea why. That's just what I did, and I just went
Mhm.
through life on autopilot. And then meditation really
Yeah,
allowed me to sit back, and I'm still learning and still going through it years after starting this practice. But it makes you just kind of realize, okay, I've thought these thoughts about this situation, but why did I think these thoughts? And a lot of times I find anyway, it's like, well, I've been thinking these kind of thoughts for so many years. So it's like
mhm.
you've got to kind of go back and go, well, what made me think that way? And can I
Yeah,
change that? Can I start to think differently? And the answer is yes, absolutely you can, but you've got to
yeah,
figure out, what it is
mhm.
that started you on that journey,
Yeah.
that thinking process. Um, so you got into ayahuasca. At what point in your journey, I guess, or your travels did you experiment with it?
That would be probably the a year and a half after living in Thailand. So like I said, I went to this Vipassana retreat, pretty much really helped shift a lot of things internally. And what happened was a friend was like, "Hey, check out this Joe Rogan podcast. He has a
Mm.
guy called Aubrey Marcus and Graham Hancock, and they're doing an episode about ayahuasca." And at this point, I had never done any like plant medicines. I didn't even know what plant medicines were. So I had experimented in college with mushrooms and but it wasn't with intention or for like personal
Mhm.
development. So when I heard this episode, I was like, wow, I need to go to South America to really experience this, because this is exactly where I'm on my journey, and this I feel like I'm being pulled or called to sit with this medicine. And so yeah, I was very drawn into it. So I just started researching everything I could get my hands on the internet, researching about ayahuasca. So I had to go back home for my brother's wedding in New York. So I was like, if I'm going to go all the way back from Asia to New York, then I'm going to try to go to South America, because they're like the complete opposites.
Mhm.
So I researched, I researched a bunch of different retreat centers, different shamans, and I finally made a decision, and I chose one. So I made the deposit, booked the airline tickets, and flew to Peru. And this was
Nice.
2014.
What is ayahuasca? I mean, I've read a little bit about it, but I don't know a whole lot. So feel free to dive in and just explain what it is and what it does to us.
Yeah, sure. So just from like a basic point of view of like what is it? It it's made out of so ayahuasca is like this liquid. They call it a tea, but it's really not a tea. But anyways, it's this brew, I guess you would say, and it's made out of the ayahuasca vine. So it's an actual vine that they use to boil it down, and then they also mix it with I think it's called chacruna, and that's another plant. And they take the leaves from that and they boil it together. It's a really long process, and this is what the shamans make. And so this is the thing: it comes from the native indigenous cultures, tribes such as the Shipibo and the Amazon. They've been working with these natural plant medicines for centuries. Just like, they don't have like a CVS or a pharmacy that they can go rock up to. It's like they get everything from Mother Nature, from the
Mm.
forest. And so they've been using this in their ceremonies and rituals for all these years. And basically, you could say it's their form of healthcare. And it works on a level of different levels, like physical, mental, emotional, even spiritual. So I would say on the physical level, it's when you take it, it's a purgatory detoxing process. So it's pretty much cleaning you out of any stuff that's in your system, and then emotionally or energetically, it's also helping you release certain memories or traumas. At least that's what it was for me. And so it is psychoactive, so it can make you hallucinogenic. It can make you have hallucinations. But it's done under the ceremonies are done under the care and supervision of a shaman, and shamans these are the experts, the masters that have been leading ceremonies. And so it's really important that, if you work with any kind of psychedelic or plant medicine, it's always important to have setting an intention there in place. So when you have a shaman there overseeing, it's almost like a lifeguard or like an airline pilot steering the ship or the plane. You have someone there to kind of direct the flow of the energy, and sometimes people can have a hard time with the medicine. Mm-hmm. So a shaman is there to kind of comfort them, keep them grounded, watch over them. And so, yeah, and why do people come all the way to South America to drink? I'll speak from my experience. This was my form of healing, my therapy. Some people have addictions. Some people are going through maybe like a bad breakup, or they're kind of lost in life. They don't know what to do. For me, the first time I went to Peru to drink was to really, like I said, to complete that healing cycle of a lot of sadness and grief I was carrying inside my heart. And you could say there's a lot of emotional blockages inside. So I couldn't really connect with myself or connect with other people on emotional levels. And I guess you could say, like, one of the female shamans during the ceremony, it was as if she was singing the song directly into my heart. And the message I got was, Chris, it's okay to love yourself. Just be kind to yourself. And for me, someone who always had a lot of negative self-talk in their head, who had been bullied, I never learned how to love myself or be kind to myself. So that was a really huge shift, and for me with the medicines.
Mm-hmm. So you drink this tea, or you don't want to call it tea, this brew. How long does it take for it to hit, and then what's happening? What, you start to just hallucinate like you would on mushrooms, or how does this work?
So yeah, I'll explain it from a logistics point of view first. So you go into, usually you're out in nature, you're in the middle of the jungle, or maybe you're up in the Andes Mountains, and it's in a big ceremonial hut called a baloka. And it was just very basic, sometimes open air, maybe just mosquito nettings. And usually it's in a circle. That's where the ceremony is. So you have all these mats, and then the shamans will, like the way for me, the shamans were in the middle, and they have an altar. And also you're fasting all day pretty much. And you usually take the medicine at night. So we would go in at around 7 p.m. For an hour. We would just sit and meditate, just kind of get clear on our intention. Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, we each go up one by one, and we would take a shot of ayahuasca. You then go back to your seat, and you kind of just wait. And it takes about, I would say, half hour to 45 minutes for the medicine to kick in. And so there's the thing, the lights then get turned out, and the shamans will come around and sing icaros, which are medicine songs to kind of help guide you on your journey. So I'll explain what my journey was like, but the thing is, like with plant medicine psychedelics, it's always hard to like forecast or what to expect. So I don't want to, like, if someone's watching this, my experience is going to be much different from yours. So don't expect this. That's what I'm just trying to say. Okay. So for me, typically I don't have a lot of hallucinations, to be honest. With ayahuasca, some people, if you watch on YouTube, like, they're having mind-blowing visions and visuals. But for me, it's I'm usually purging, I'm usually puking or having to go to the bathroom, which is normal. I've had some hallucinations, but like I said, for me, the healing part was really being able to just sit with my own feelings and past emotions and kind of release them. And that's the thing, other people will have experiences where maybe they're reliving certain childhood memories or traumatic experiences they're reliving, but they're able to release it. So you'll feel the effects. So that's kind of like a general idea of like what can happen for someone. Like I said, anyone can have such a different experience as well. So whoever watches, just keep that in mind. Like my experience can be completely different. So usually the ceremony will last, like the effects of the medicine, anywhere from like a couple hours up until like maybe 6 hours. And you're not really able to move around. It's kind of like a lucid state. So walking is really hard. You might not be able to talk. And such a thing, like some people will go through intense journeys. They might be crying. Other people are laughing or yawning or screaming or yelling. It's a form of release. It's cathartic. It can be cathartic. So it can be a very emotional, intense experience. That's why if you walk into a ceremony, it can sound very loud and whatnot. But this is people going to release yourself and healing. So usually that's 6 hours, 8 hours. And they then close the ceremony and you're free to either go to your bed to sleep or you can sleep in the maloka. I usually always just sleep in the maloka because it's nice and comfy and I feel like it's a safe spot. But yeah, the ayahuasca ceremony and the ones I did in Ecuador where I'm leaving the retreat, we would actually start later from like 10 p.m. and then go all the way till 6 a.m. when the sun rises. But the shamans are with you the whole time. And that's kind of like the general structure of how an ayahuasca ceremony is like.
Now, is it just the one time that you take it and you do it, or is it something that you do multiple times throughout a week? Because I know some of the retreats anyway I've seen are multiple days or a week long usually. So would you take it more than once?
So the first time I went to Peru was a 12-day retreat, and we drank 7 times in those 12 days.
Wow! Did you puke all 7 times?
I puked all 7 times, felt nauseous, and it was it's not a pleasant feeling. But I was like, you know what, I need to go on some deep journeys and heal some stuff. Yeah. So that was my intention. I had a pretty big intention. And then previous years after that, I would go to other 12-day retreats, and we would work with not just ayahuasca, but also San Pedro medicine as well. So here's the thing, like you can also, there's so many different ways to work the medicine. So some people be like, oh, I want to go to retreat. And some people just want to go maybe for a one-off ceremony. Yeah. It really depends. Like I said, for me, I was like, I need to like really have a quiet space and really do some deep diving within, some soul searching. So that's why I went for 12 days. I just feel like in today's busy society, like, because you can do these one-off ceremonies, people do that, but it's like,
if you're going to
part of the experience, exactly, and part of the experience is like getting away from the distractions of technology and just being in nature where you can ground yourself and connect to that inner voice and intuition, and just take the time to really like figure out your shit. And so that's why when people ask, like, yeah, I've done like one-off ceremonies as well, but that's in conjunction with like multi-day retreats. And such a thing. It's like, if you really want to do it the right way, I really recommend going to a multi-day retreat center and giving yourself time to slow down.
Is the idea of how this works is, to me anyway, this is what it seems like, is you take this stuff, you hallucinate, you have all these thoughts that you probably don't want to be thinking usually. You throw up, you feel sick, you have all this, these things that are happening to you. Is the idea that you become mentally and physically and maybe spiritually stronger because you've kind of battled through it and you've figured out how to get through those hallucinogens or those hallucinating thoughts and just kind of that everything that you've experienced throughout taking that drug? Is that kind of how it works?
You could say that. Yeah. It's for me, I really wanted to confront a lot of my personal demons. Okay. Things that had been bothering me or haunting me for a while. And so, yeah, I would say that's a big part of the process is confronting the things that we might be avoiding or running away for. Mm-hmm. Like I was drinking a lot and taking cocaine. It's like, well, if you look underneath that, I was not comfortable with myself. I was avoiding myself. I was avoiding social situations or issues I didn't want to like face. So when you go to retreat and work with medicine, it can help you kind of confront these things. That way you can then move past them, grow on them, and just have inner peace. So yeah, I would say a big part of going to these retreats is giving you the opportunity to really slay your dragons.
Yeah, I like that. Now, I mean, can we work through this stuff without doing ayahuasca, or is it just provide that like that boost to really dive deep and make it easier to get in and figure out what those dragons are? Is that why you'd go that route instead of maybe doing some therapy and trying that way?
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, there's other things like meditation or therapy or whatever, but I think one of the things that it's nice, it's for people who maybe don't have the luxury of meditating a couple hours a day, or
Mm,
who don't want to spend years, decades in therapy to get to a spot. Going to a retreat with medicine can kind of help you get to that point faster,
yeah.
if that makes sense. But the thing is, I just, even if you were to do that, the thing is that people are like, oh, but that's like a shortcut. It's a hack. It's like, no, it's not. You know what? It still takes work to actually
Mm,
implement everything that you learned in the ceremony. You still have to apply it to your daily life and integrate and process. And that's a big reason why I do the coaching. So I don't believe there's any shortcuts. You're still going to have to, it's not a magic bullet. You're still going to do the daily work. You're still going to work on yourself the months after the retreat. So yeah, it can kind of maybe help you see things a little bit more clear, but it's not a shortcut that some people
yeah.
like to assume.
Good point. I was actually going to ask about that. What's that experience like after the fact? Once you finished it, that 10 days or 12 days or however long you do it for, when
Mhm.
you come back to reality, what's that like? And then where do things go from there?
Mhm. Um, I was pretty lucky because I was able to go from Peru back to Thailand. So luckily, my life it wasn't a hard transition. Because some people have to go back to their corporate jobs
Mm,
and be stuck in that reality. For me personally, I mean, so what happened was I was able to kind of shed a lot of heavy stuff and start my entrepreneurial journey. But yeah, it was. I still, like I said, for me, I still had to work on myself. You know, I was still meditating afterwards every day and just doing my morning rituals, going through my journaling exercises, going through my affirmations, still being aware of what my self-talk and self-chatter, just to make sure that I wouldn't slip into maybe negative thought patterns and continue to watch it and be positive. So I would say for me, luckily I didn't have that hard of a transition to go back in Thailand, but I would say, other people though, like I said, people who work in corporate jobs, they then go back into their jobs or careers, almost like their old environments.
mm.
And that can be, it can be a tougher challenge to work through that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you did it the right way, heading over to Thailand after doing that. But sounds really interesting. Like I said, I've never done it, but I could definitely see the benefit in it. I'm intrigued, and if I make my way to South America, it's definitely something that I can see myself trying out. Because I can see the value in it for sure. And I mean, I put a lot of work into meditation myself anyway.
Mhm.
So why not have that extra boost as we talked about? Now, you run these retreats yourself, and I think you have been for some time. Can you sort of talk about the retreats that you do?
Sure. So I've been going to South America for the last 4 or 5 years. Every time I go back to visit my family, which is usually once a year, I then go down to South America. So I've been to Ecuador, Peru, and Colombia, and I've really blessed. And that's a big thing for anyone who's gonna be drinking medicines. Like, you really want to know the shaman and have integrity and trust in relationship, because it's just like getting heart surgery done or brain surgery. It's like you really want to make sure that doctor is someone you can depend on.
Mm,
So so I met a shaman in Santiago a couple of years ago at a different retreat center, and he helped me so much, kind of helped my find my life purpose, and I trusted him. So I was like, you know what? When I got into coaching, I was like, I want to eventually combine coaching for men with retreats and create these rites of passage. So last year in Ecuador, I ran 3 retreats with him, and he opened up his own retreat center at his own place in Ecuador in the mountains of Vilcabamba. And so I wanted to create a rite of passage, an initiation for men. My retreats are called the Hero's Journey Experience. And this is the thing, I feel like in our modern society, we don't have these rites of passage where guys can kind of move from boyhood to manhood properly under the guidance of elders or role models. And also guys, we don't have a place where guys can connect with one another on a deep level and just be vulnerable and talk about the stuff we're going through, and also a place to kind of figure out what our life purpose is and what our direction is. So that was the big intention for creating them last year. So the way I run them, we got 2 June and July coming up. So they're 12-day retreats, and we keep a small intimate group, anywhere from 6 to 10 guys. And so we work with both medicines, ayahuasca and San Pedro. So real quick, San Pedro is a different medicine. It grows in the Andes Mountains of Peru and Ecuador. And it's taken during the daytime. It's more gentle. It's called grandfather medicine. It's a really beautiful medicine. Anyways, we work with both those medicines. So we work with ayahuasca at night and then San Pedro in the daytime. Usually we have time in between. We also have hikes in nature where guys, we take them to waterfalls. And then we also have like a sweat lodge ceremony, which comes from other indigenous cultures or practices. And what really sets us apart is, like I said, I would say the coaching. So I do a month of preparation coaching before the retreat. You could say going to a retreat or work medicine is almost like a marathon. You wouldn't just train the week before to go to marathon. So same with, because drugs, they can be a very intense thing to go through, and it's really important that you do your preparation. So I do a month long of prep coaching before the retreat with the guys, also to kind of build a brotherhood before that. That way the guys kind of get to know each other before they actually come to the retreat. Because a retreat experience, when you go there with other people, you were getting super raw, super vulnerable in a very quick amount of time. And these people become your family within a day or two. Yeah. And so I really like to create that kind of environment where guys can grow and heal and just get deep. So during the 12 days, we have workshops, things on emotional intelligence, communication, figuring out your vision, mission, and purpose in life. So we do that. And then we also have like sharing circles to really help process and integrate the lessons that they have learned from the ceremonies. And then a month after the retreat, I continue doing integration coaching that way to really help guys stay on track, really implement the lessons that they might have received from the ceremonies.
I love that. Sounds amazing, actually. Now, who would be the ideal person that would benefit from these retreats?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say based on last year, my guys were, it was a nice international mix last year. We had about 10 guys go through, and they're from US, Europe, Canada, all over. And some of these were entrepreneurs working online. Other guys work in corporate jobs. And the age, some guys were in the 20s and 30s. I'm 39. So I've also had people in their 40s approach me about attending these. So I would say these are guys, I would say some of the group fit into some kind of, dealing with some kind of emotional baggage. Like I said, they look for some kind of healing on a deeper level. Depression, anxiety, loneliness, feeling cut off or disconnected from themselves, not being able to open up or communicate with other people. I would say that's a decent amount of the guys that came through last year. Also, some of these guys are feeling lost. They're working a job they don't enjoy, and they're trying to look for the transition or the next chapter or a new direction to go into. Even some of these entrepreneurs I work with, they're maybe making a lot of money, they're being successful, but they don't have that deep fulfillment that money can't get you. So they're like, well, I had the successful business online making me money, but I don't feel like I'm really doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So I would say the other group is people looking for, life purpose, what their impact is on society, what their mission, vision is going to be. And then I would say guys are also looking for connection, brotherhood, and some guys like, oh, I only have female friends. I don't have that masculine energy to be around and vibe off of. So guys want to be able to connect with each other and go below the more surface level conversations that we tend to just stick with. So that's kind of the general demographic of men that I like to help and that I I attract into the retreats.
Yeah, it's really cool that you're doing this. I love it. Now, if someone wants to look further into it, is there a website they go to, or how do they get connected into this?
Sure. The retreat website is heroesjourneyexperience.com. And that's based off of Joseph Campbell's hero's journey that he talks about, which is the blueprint. And, that's the big reason why I call that is because we're all on the hero's journey. And a big part of my hero's journey was moving to Thailand, leaving the US, and go through the tradition. And like I said, a lot of guys, they want to go on this hero's journey. And I create this experience so guys can go through that rite of passage and come back more confident and free. And then my coaching, my personal and coaching website is Christopher W. Chiu, CHIU.com. And that's where you can find me. Also, I'm a big on Instagram, Christopher W. Chiu. And then, I'm on Facebook, social media, Christopher W. Chiu on Facebook. But I'll give you all the links where people can hit me up on social.
Yeah, if anyone's interested, I'll have them in the links in the show notes, so you can just click in there and check it out. You've got a couple of retreats coming up soon, do you not?
Yeah, I got one in June 12th to 27th in Ecuador. And then I got the second one, July 23rd to August 3rd. And those are 12-day retreats. Like I said, just for men, limited to 10 guys each. So if someone's interested, check out the website. There's an application form, and we can get in touch and start the application process through that.
Awesome. Now, Chris, I have a question that I ask all the guests that come on the show here. So I'm going to throw it at you now.
Sure.
And put you on the spot here. And it's going to be the final question of this episode. So you've been on a health journey for some time now, ever since you had your burnout and decided that you got to fix things. If you were to go back to the very beginning of that journey and forget everything that you currently know and that you've learned and experienced along the way, what would be the one thing that you right now would want to tell yourself if you were just starting out? What would be that one piece of advice that you'd want to know?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'll summarize it real quick. I would say look at mind, body, and spirit. Physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. That's the basic framework. I used to just focus on the physical. Look at all four of those areas. Get those in alignment, and you'll be good. And I'll actually add one more thing. I would say maybe you can also add sexual energy and financial energy levels on that as well. But I would say that would be the one piece of advice, because that's kind of the starting point of everything else. So definitely look at those things, get those in alignment, get those balanced and grounded, and that's a pretty solid foundation to start the journey on.
I love it. Yeah, so many of us focus just on the physical and forget about the rest, and that's really where the health journey starts, and where it all kind of begins is when you start to dive into the other areas. So when you can get into that, then you're right, it creates a strong foundation for you for a long time. So Chris, thank you so much for sharing all this information.
Thank you, brother.
It sounds really interesting, and hopefully some of the listeners here learned a lot about ayahuasca that maybe they didn't know before. And if you want to give it a try, Chris is the man. Make sure you link up with him. But thank you for taking time out of your busy day here in Bali.
Thank you, brother. Thanks for the opportunity.